Hello and welcome to Spirit and Life Radio. I am your host, Jeffrey Meyer, continuing on in faith that changes the world. Well, we're talking about various aspects of faith. Today, let's talk about how faith is a journey. By faith, Abraham, when he was called to go out into a place which he should after receive for an inheritance, obeyed, and he went out, not knowing whither he went. By faith, he sojourned in the land of promise as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of the same promise. For he looked for a city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. Hebrews chapter 11, verse 8 through 11. Now that is a journey of faith, is it not? And we have come now to one I really love. Faith is a pilgrimage, or a journey, if you will. If we could call Abraham down from heaven, now we know any one of these characters won't come, but we would say, Abraham, we're excited about faith. We're talking about faith down here. God spoke highly of your faith. Tell us what faith is. You know, Abraham probably could not tell us the secret of his greatness because with him, faith was a life, not a definition. He would only say something like this: I was living in a big, beautiful home in a culturally advanced city. I held a place of prominence in the area. I had flocks and much pasture land around the city. The great Euphrates flowed down in front of us. We had lots of water. We seemingly had all we needed. But God spoke to me one day and said, separate yourself from this people. Separate yourself from this sinful worshiping of idols and the devil. Then he said, separate yourself from this beautiful home. I want you to live in a tent the rest of your life. Never again will you live in a house. Well, isn't that beautiful, live in a tent the rest of your life? And God also said, I'm going to make you a great person. I'm going to give you a country. I want you to go to that country right now. Could you imagine? I can hear Abraham say, well, Lord, very interesting. Do you have a map? And the Lord said, no, I don't give maps. I give faith. Every day I will guide you for that day. I will bring you into that country where you shall live. And, Abraham, I will whisper this to you. I have a city not made with human hands. One day you can live in that city. Well, Abraham left looking for a city which has foundations, whose builder and maker is God himself. Abraham knew about the New Jerusalem. Isn't that amazing? Abraham left a city looking for a city. Oh, you say? The city left was only a primitive town. Wrong. It was a very great city. The Museum of Natural History in London has on display relics of the early Chaldees. You can see their beautiful gold filigree work of their artisans and learn about sections of their intricate below street level sewage system. Sewage system? In that day? Yes, that's right. They had cobblestone streets. It was not a second-rate town. It was not a village. It was a city of comfort, beauty, and riches. And God said to Abraham, give it up. Give up your friends. Give up the philosophers you talk with. Give up the whole thing, Abraham, and follow me. Well, Abraham chose to, and he followed the Lord in this journey by faith. You know, you can't tell how strong someone is by his surroundings. He might die for his job. He wouldn't give it up for anything. They pay him to work on the Lord's day, and he obeys. He may be bound to his home. He'd die for that house he built. He loves it above everything else. Such a one is not a pilgrim. He is very well settled. God may never want you to give up everything, but he wants you willing to do it. He wants you to say from your heart, Lord, I am willing to do this. There are people who've said to me, I'm supposed to preach. God told me to. My response is, well, why don't you preach then? I want to be a missionary. Well, why don't you go? Well, I haven't gotten into it yet. And then, usually I know, and I say, well, God doesn't want you to preach. God wants you willing to preach. After you say, Lord, I'm willing, he wants you to go ahead and do your work. But you must be willing to follow him by faith. You can't be a rebel. You must not say nothing doing, or maybe I'll think about it. No, God wanted Abraham to go into action. His faith was demonstrated by a journey. He gave up his friends, he gave up his land and his home, he gave up everything. He walked out of Ur of the Chaldees looking for a city that had foundations, whose builder and maker was God, and God called it faith. Well, you know, Abraham was married to Sarah, And if Sarah had wanted to stay in Ur of the Chaldees, she never would have seen Abraham's face again, because Abraham was leaving. If she had not wanted to go, she could have stayed there and died there. Abraham might have left her his house too. After all, he was a rich man, and Abraham was determined that he was going to obey his God. And if you're married, you have a partner in life, you have to understand that faith is a personal affair, that you have it and your spouse has it, and even your children have it. And if any man be a head of the house, as the Bible describes, your faith should flow out to the whole family. But faith is an individual thing, and I myself can't have faith for you, and you can't have faith for me. We must each have our own living, glorious, marvelous, wonderful faith in which we live by. Abraham didn't have all the faith in his house. Sarah left all too. You see, faith is an act. Abraham loaded his camels and donkeys with his goods. His wagons came out of there and started north up the river. He rode out of the city and said goodbye. He cut communication with that land, and he became a pilgrim. You can have a pilgrim spirit without physically leaving everything. Abraham obviously had a pilgrim spirit. He didn't love the things of the world. He loved God more. We must all have that pilgrim spirit with the Lord, because I believe God likes to take us places. And with the Lord, you will go to places. We must have an attitude. Lord, I'll go where you want me to go. When we're talking about faith, I'll do what you want me to do. That is the spirit of a pilgrim that flows through us and says, Lord, I've cut all the ropes. What do you want me to do? God may just say to you one day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon or 3 a.m. in the morning, go to such and such place and live for me. And you know, it might not be the place you want to go, but God has great plans for you. So talk to God about it. I think you'll often find that God will say the same thing over to you time and time and time again. He wants you to know His will. And after God has done great things in your life, you'll ask, why would He do all these things? And the answer will be, because you are His pilgrim. You didn't love your home or the city you were in or whatever else you possessed, the church you attended, whatever it was. You said instead, Lord, it's all yours. That is faith. And sometimes we may not realize it, that it is faith working in us when doing things for God. And then God may speak to you later. He may reveal it to you, and you realize that your heart was in it to obey God. And you see, that is faith. Faith is a journey we can all have, an adventure in faith. Are you ready to cut anything God will have you to cut to become a pilgrim? To walk with God and say, Lord, I'm not married to do the things of this world. Are you ready to lose your life in exchange for His life? And say to yourself, praise God, now I've got something big to do. Let's get on with it, Lord, now. Faith with God can be such that anything He removes is accepted as His will. He'll get things out of the way just to provide something bigger. And yet, some are so afraid of their jobs. They're so afraid of their houses. They're so afraid of the mundane things around them until they're married to them. And then they don't have faith. But you must realize that faith is a pilgrimage. Are you willing to go with God? Like Abraham? Could you imagine the grim face that morning with a big stick in his hand? He went plowing out the city. Can you hear the inhabitants laughing? Oh, there goes that fool. We won't ever hear from him again, nor less see him. As it turned out, of course, no one hears of them anymore. Nothing but a sand dune is there now, today. But Abraham, bless God, the whole world has heard of him. Imagine a man with such capacity that at the voice of God he cut everything loose. To him, he was walking into oblivion. There were no guarantees. Nothing was out there but God. So he walked and talked with God in faith believing. Sometimes through disasters or persecution, people lose houses and businesses. What would you do? Commit suicide? Or would you be joyful and rejoice in the Lord? In some countries, people lose their jobs because they don't go along with the government's atheistic stand or religious view. What would you do? Faith is a pilgrimage with God. just breaking loose from everything and saying, Lord, have your way. I'm walking with you. I leave it all behind. What a glorious life it is. What a thrilling, magnificent situation you can have within your heart. Faith is the most wonderful thing. Faith could change the world if we had men and women who would pay the price for having it. Too many say, we don't want any. Number one, we don't want to give to God. Number two, we don't want to walk with God. Number three, we don't want to work for God. And for God's sakes, we don't want to be a pilgrim in a journey with God through faith. We want to get anchored down. We want security. The world itself is being destroyed by what people call security. But my strength is in God. My security is in God. I depend on no one else but Jesus Christ. I am tied to nothing but Jesus Christ. What say you? I say, faith is a pilgrimage. Dear friends, if you'd like more information about our church and or the ministry, please go to our website at www.surreycitychurch.com. That's surreycitychurch.com. We'd also like to remind you that we are a listener-supported radio broadcast. Spirit and Life Radio is depending on you, our listeners, to help us stay on the air. And so I ask kindly, won't you consider giving today, so that we will not have to go off the air on KARI Radio. So if you have enjoyed the program, you can help us by going to our church website, and in the upper right-hand corner, you will see the donate button, and when you click on that, that will take you to our secure PayPal website where you can donate using that tool, or if you don't use PayPal, you can scroll down to the left, and you will see the word continue. Click on that link, and it will take you to a secure page where you can use your credit or debit card. This is the quickest way you can show us that you're with us through your financial support. Now, if you don't use the internet, you can always write to us at suite number 491, 7360, 137th Street, Surrey, BC, V3W1A3. That's suite number 491, 7360, 137th Street, Surrey, V3W1A3. And on the U.S. side, too, P.O. Box 737. P.O. Box 737, Ferndale, Washington, 98248. Canadians, please make your checks out to Surrey Central City Church, and on the U.S. side, to Spirit Life Worship Center. Remember, your gifts are tax deductible, and we will be sending out to all donors the Spirit of Man and the Life of the Spirit. 60-plus minutes on the subject of the human spirit and the life of the Spirit of God in man. Please be sure to include your address when sending in your donation. If you need that information again, you can always email us at spiritandliferadio@gmail.com or call our toll-free line at 877-800-0429. And finally, I'd like to invite you to our Sunday service held at the brand new Chuck Bailey Recreation Center on 13458 107 Avenue and University Drive. That's 13458 107 Avenue and University Drive, less than a block southeast of the Gateway SkyTrain Station. That's the Gateway SkyTrain Station. If you're coming from Vancouver, Burnaby, or somewhere in those parts, you can get off there at the Gateway SkyTrain Station and just walk south about a half a block, and you will see the Chuck Bailey Recreation Center. It is a glass structure. You can't miss it. Free parking, so come on out at 10:30 a.m. this coming Sunday. Now remember, friends, it is the Spirit who gives life. The flesh profits nothing. The words that I speak unto you, they are Spirit and they are life. Spirit and Life Radio, your Spirit-filled connection.